Hi there, my name is Megan, and this is the first of my 4-part series on how to create stroke animations for a day-to-night scene using Adobe After Effects. In this first video, I'm going to show you how to create those animations using Adobe After Effects. In the second video, I'm going to show you how to add a glow to those animations as if you're creating a neon sign. And then in the third video, I'm going to show how to transform that scene into a nighttime scene from a daytime scene to really make that neon stand out. And then in the fourth and final video, I'm going to show you how to export or render that video using both Adobe After Effects and Adobe Media Encoder. So let's jump straight into the first video.
So this is the famous Skipping Girl vinegar sign located in Richmond, Victoria that we're going to be recreating, starting with the animation effect. To create this, we're going to start with an image of the sign and then add animations using the pen tool and add a darker background. So to start off, we'll load our image into Adobe After Effects and create a composition ensuring that the image starts at the correct ratio. I'll then drag this layer into the timeline so that we can use it as a base. As we can see here, it's set up in the 16:9 screen ratio, but then I'm going to add to this by selecting the layer and then going up to our layers menu, new layer, and then adding a shape layer over the top. I'll then rename this shape layer P1 for pen 1, pen tool, and using Control D or Command D on a Mac, I'll duplicate these as we're going to need a new layer for each new animation and also a new layer for each color of stroke that we use. Then I'll just select the first layer here and go to our timeline so that we can see more clearly how many frames there are. I'm going to drag this out and then to create the animation, adjust the slider along the timeline to trim the timeline for that specific animation. Trim a layer on the timeline, select the layer and hold in Option on a Mac or Alt on a Windows and either the left or right bracket key. Earlier I set my composition to 5 frames per second. So for each layer I'm going to start at 5 frames apart. So layer 1 is on 0, layer 2 starts on frame 5, and then so on and so on. And I'll just make an adjustment of the placement of this image with the hand tool, just to getting close enough so I can see clearly where I'm making those strokes. Now I'll select the pen tool using the G shortcut or from the top ribbon. And firstly start with the stroke turned off by selecting the word stroke. And then clicking around the first of the loops here, so you can press and hold and then drag out to create that curve. What I usually like to do is go in and finish the line before going back in to edit it, because then you can use these little toggles here on the sides of each point or vertex where you can manipulate and adjust your creation easily. By double clicking you can move the line around as a whole, or as I mentioned earlier, select each vertex to move it into place. Once you're happy with the stroke, it's then time to go in and adjust the stroke color and thickness. For this one I'm choosing red to match the original, and then adjusting the stroke to a thickness of 30, which you can do by adjusting the slider or by typing in the value in the box. Reposition this image back into a more comfortable view now, and follow the same process by selecting the second layer to create our next stroke. Choose to either have the first layer off while doing this, or because this layer or stroke that I'm completing here is a little less visible, I'm going to turn it back on. As you can see here, there are 4 individual rotations for the animation. I've already created the third one here using the same process that I've just showed, but to create the fourth, what I'm going to do first is to actually outline the girl first, just because it's behind those layers. Following the same process to before, I'm going to go in now and create a new layer. Again, first turning off the stroke, and then use the pen tool to start outlining. So as you can see here, I've got each of the red on the same layer, which I've added to the bottom of the stack and given a name as Girl Red. I'll also create individual layers using the shape layer for the different colors. So I believe there's white and yellow and green and blue as well. They'll each have their own layer. Zooming back out now, this is the end result for the red layer at the bottom, which I'm toggling on and off here using the eye tool. As I mentioned here, just creating a new shape layer, drag it to the bottom of the layer stack, and I'll rename it Girl White. When I add the stroke to this layer, I'm going to need to make sure that the color is also changed to white. Now I've created all of those base layers, I'm just going to go back and create the fourth stroke animation for the skipping rope. So with those layers that I've just created turned on, I'll select the pen tool, shortcut G, and change the stroke color back to red. Just gone in and adjusted the value here to 40 just to make sure it's nice and visible at the back. As you can see, I've also just added in some green at the bottom as there is also some ground or grass animation, and then moving along the slider here you can see that working. One thing important to note here is that the grass layer actually corresponds to the skipping rope, so making sure that those two layers that correspond are aligned on the timeline, starting from the same frame. Using the same process earlier, we'll also need to trim the end of the frame so that the animation can loop. Once I've trimmed all the frames, you can now see that animation running smoothly. To show the end result, I'll switch off our background layer and go into composition and preview, play current preview. And that was how to create a stroke animation using Adobe After Effects. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to add the neon glow. See you then.